Hello and welcome, and thank you all for joining us today for the start of our 2022 series, S/4HANA versus SAP ECC, understanding your options as a supply chain and operations user, manager, and leader. Throughout this series, we're going to talk to you in depth what is different in S4 versus ECC throughout this SAP S/4HANA logistics line of business. With each of these webinars, we invite you to examine your own supply chain and inspire you to use the powerful capabilities already built in ECC and S/4HANA. Today's presentation is going to last approximately 30 minutes, followed by some time to ask questions at the end. Please feel free to capture your questions in the question or chat section during the webinar. And at this time, I'm going to introduce you to today's speaker, David Carroll. David is an associate partner and thought leader here at Reveal and has more than 30 years of supply chain experience. David is an accomplished SAP professional, and his specialties include supply chain integration and transformations. He is an expert in the SAP PP space with more than 15 years of active configuration experience, with additional experience in SAP MM, WM, HU, and QM modules. He is an international speaker across all supply chains and around the world. So with that, welcome, David, and I'm going to hand this over to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Kelly. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I hope you're all well and safe. So today, basically, I'm going to be doing an overview of, basically the large differences between S/4HANA and ECC. This webinar isn't designed to go into a lot of detail. What it's designed to do for this particular one is designed to give you an overview of why SAP is focusing on S/4HANA. Now, to be able to do this, I want to take you back in time. I don't know if any of you remember the time tunnel. I'm old enough too. Arthur C. Clarke basically quoted 40 years ago that today's science fiction is tomorrow's future. Okay, and if you think about the journey that SAP have gone on and the evolution of SAP, HANA represents a technology shift that basically has been about 40 years in the making. Okay, in the early 90s, companies began moving from mainframes, which were your 70s R2 type things, green screens and yellow screens, pixelated, right? They started moving into the R3 side of the world, okay? But there was a reason for it, okay? And as you go through and have a look at the evolution of SAP, there's a reason for every change, okay? Back to Arthur C. Clarke's world, right? Which in terms of, science fiction becoming reality. SAP have been taking us on a real journey, enabling us to be able to grow so that we then as businesses have the ability to grow our businesses. And this transition, which is basically huge in terms of a technology shift, okay, is SAP's next step in terms of being able to present us as supply chain business people with a foundation, with a system that enables us to have quicker, faster information, because that's what we need, that's what we want, that's what we crave. And as we go back in time, we'll be able to see that quite literally that's what we've been asking for, and they have been one step ahead of us all the way in this journey. So if you think about it, 1992, 2004, HANA 2011, right? Okay, I mean, that database that popped up from nowhere, why was it there? Because there was a requirement for it. There's somebody is at the forefront of saying, I want things faster, I need to have information quicker. Okay, being able to run ECC on HANA, yeah, and then 2015, when they announced the S/4HANA, making it the next generation of ERP software, it became exclusive. HANA became exclusive. S4 can't run on anything else. And then since then, they've accelerated that in terms of going to cloud platforms, and then there's now the intelligence suite, right? Okay, because SAP are taking us towards the intelligent enterprise. We've gone, as I've said, from large scale mainframes all the way through big data, where, all of a sudden there were these big words, blockchain and Internet of Things. These things are there, and we need a system to be able to manage them with, okay, or to integrate them with, right? Because they're great technologies, but as a business, from a supply chain perspective, we need to become more integrated, but we are craving faster information. We need to be able to move with the times. And this change basically is significant enough for us now to step into the future. I mean, they've been blazing a trail right into the digital future for longer than we know. If as a user we look at what that means to us, okay, I'm going to pick on the one big thing that everybody is familiar with. I mean, let's not forget, the architectural changes and those kind of good things that have gone on to enable us to be able to do our jobs, faster and better. But I'm going to use the front end as an example, okay? Text-based screens back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Okay, I mean, I actually do know of a company that still uses a green screen. Yeah, that was implemented in the early 80s. They're still using it, right? But in the 90s, right, okay, SAP came up with a new GUI interface, which everybody was like, wow, enjoy, this is incredible. Yeah. And then when they started getting into the HTML side of the world from a GUI perspective, personally, I'll never ever forget when I was there, because I've implemented PPPI, a few times, and I'll never forget the day when we went from ABAP PI sheets to HTML PI sheets. It was a mini revolution in my mind, okay, but they were transforming as we went. There's this new technology, there's these new PI sheets that look amazing. And now what we've got is these new Fiori device, interfaces that are even better. Okay, so from a familiarity perspective, if you look back at that journey, that evolution, they've been there, they've provided the green screens, then they've gone to the Enjoy, then they've gone to the HTML side of the world and completely redesigned everything for S4HANA or S4. Okay, so it's always been with us, is what I want to say. Those changes, those developments have always been there, and now we are literally in the S4 world at the forefront of the new intelligent enterprise, right? With things like artificial intelligence and all those kind of good things. We now have a platform to be able to launch from in terms of improving our future-proofing of our businesses. Okay, so that is why SAP has been focusing on S4HANA, and they've been doing it for the last 40 years, believe it or not. We can't take extreme changes as human beings. We just can't do it. So basically, if you look back at that history that I've just showed you, those have been subtle but strong changes that have basically rolled with the times. And now, as a supply chain, as a business or businesses, we are craving more information, and that technology is there, and the S4 suite is enabling us to use all of those technologies and bring them all together. Now, like I said, it's very difficult for us as human beings to, basically endure huge change. So, one of the really good things about what SAP have done is they haven't completely changed everything, right? There are still similarities, right? So that we can fold and move and walk into something that is a little bit more comfortable, and that's more palatable as well in terms of being able to understand why we're doing this. Okay, I mean, they still have, sales and distribution. It's still got procurement, it's still got production planning, it's still got shop floor control, accounting, right? But they've revolutionized, a lot of this additional functionality, the functionality that's now in S4, versus the ECC side of the world, right? Both systems offer centralized information. They both offer a single source of operational data. Okay, but as we move forward, that's not going to be enough, right? Okay, because as I've said to you, if we want to launch into tomorrow, then we really and truthfully have to think about what tomorrow is. Let's do our, Arthur C. Clarke impersonations and say, what is science fiction today needs to be enabled today. And S4 is doing that, right? I mean, we all know it's a total rewrite, right, from the ground up. Yeah, we all know that there's a lot of additional smart things there. And this is an overview about giving you benefits from a business perspective. But the real power of this move, yeah, is being prepared as a business for the differences tomorrow. Okay, so what's the so what of all of that, right? Okay, talk to me about the benefits. What do I get? Why do I need to move? What's coming? In terms of and as we talk around what the benefits are, let's just think about all the iterations that HANA's gone through, S4's gone through already, right? From the very first release till now, and it's been evolving in a really high rate. But from a fundamental perspective, the benefits are still the same. We're just getting better, slicker functionality, right? But if we are to stay ahead of our competition, right? We've got all these buzzwords now, like agile and great things from a supply chain perspective, because we all know that from a supply chain perspective, we've been hit hard, and we possibly could get hit hard again. The latest news coming out of China is that they're locking down cities again, right? Okay. But if we really and truthfully want to look as a business to find the big benefits, then let's just think about, how do we get and use the best out of our people? How do I redeploy limited resources? Okay, have I got the technology for me to be able to do that? How do I get enhanced analytics? Okay, because I need to be making faster decisions. This is a classic, right? From a forecasting perspective, if half of the world's supply chain isn't going to be on the road anymore, how can I react? How can I make bigger decisions, faster decisions? Yeah, do I use AI? Have I got the capabilities of using AI yet? Well, if you haven't got, or if you're not from a business perspective using it, S4 will give you the ability to be able to start to use it. Okay, what they've done from a redesign perspective is they brought all of the the modules back in, for want of a better expression, right? Things like ATP, ATP, they can now use it because of the simpler data modeling, which means that there's less boxes, which means that it's going to drastically reduce costs. Yeah, okay. And of course, there's all those technology hurdles that we've all come across, right? This doesn't speak to that, and this doesn't do this, and I can't interface here, there, and everywhere. And who'd be thinking that you'd be saying that in 2020? But it still happens, right? So we're getting provided something that enables us to be able to do this, right? To be able to take that journey forward. Okay, so I'm just going to go through 6 or 7. I can't remember exactly how many it is in terms of business benefits, right? And I've talked a little bit about it, but I'm just going to go into a little bit more detail. So this one here, right, from a business update perspective, right? Okay, being able to adapt faster. Okay, being able to make changes to our business models. The technology from the S4 perspective enables us to do that a little bit quicker, right? Instead of having to go through the rigor of, or the rigmarole of huge model changes, which we know from an ECC perspective can take a long time. Okay, there's the ability now to be able to acquire companies a lot quicker. Yeah, you can add new sales channels faster. There was a pet food company up in Canada that I know of. Basically, was on S4HANA. Pandemic hits, people start panic buying. Oh my God, how am I going to feed my dog, or my cat, or my goldfish? Okay, and they they're just flying. Their stuff was just flying off the shelves. They couldn't make it fast enough, but they managed to get to grips with it. Okay, and they needed to add a new warehouse. They did it in 2 weeks. Yeah, so there's big business benefits there in terms of being agile, and being able to change your model. I talked about this just a second ago in terms of the lower ownership, right? Talk about the simple data model. Okay, bringing ATP and ATP, and global ATP into the same box. PPDS, okay, giving you great functionality. So from a business perspective, you're getting good functionality there, but from an IT perspective, at the same time, it's a double win, right? Because now, from an industry solutions perspective, I don't need to have a different box. So I'm looking at lower maintenance costs. Yeah? So there's some huge advances, MDG, making sure that we understand that we can have the ability to bring it all together. I mean, for me, that was exciting, to get PPDS. I know it's not 100% perfect, but it's still better than it was. Okay, and that's how we need to think of it, right? In terms of, we still might need to use a SIF, but from a data perspective, I'm getting faster, analytics. I'm getting better functionality. Not that the production planning side of ECC isn't good, and that's coming into S4HANA as well. Okay, but you can see the advantages of being able to bring in, the industry solutions and all of the other bolt-ons, so to speak, bring them back, debolt. Okay, another big one which I was excited around was faster analytics. Okay, BW is great, but there was always this, it has to run overnight and, we'll get the results in the morning sort of thing. Well, now we don't have to worry about anything like that anymore. We don't have to store huge amounts of data in warehouses when it's all going to be inside the HANA database, and be able to be accessed in so much better, faster ways. Okay, to me as a manager, to me as a plant manager, to me as a production manager back in my day there when I was operational, that line of insight, I needed it. I wanted that information faster. And then all of a sudden, 2011, right, HANA comes out and all this new technology around in-memory databases and speeds. That got my juices flowing, because I'm thinking to myself, hey, you know what? I'll be able to get information a lot quicker. Even with BW, that was still exciting because you could get hold of stuff. The logistics information system, all of those good things. But now we're getting that on steroids, basically, in terms of being able to make sure that we, as business leaders, can access information a lot quicker. This one's really, really, really exciting. Okay, the more accurate forecasting side of the world, because having done demand management and implemented it and forecasting and all that kind of good stuff, people go, how accurate are we from a forecast perspective? Well, this word, more accurate forecasting, doesn't necessarily mean that there's that bit that enables you to measure more. What this does is incredible in my book, right? Which is basically applying machine learning applications and artificial intelligence to enable better vision, which will then enable more accurate forecasting. Okay, so the classic example that I've used is the weather. And in agriculture, what am I going to forecast from a crop yield? Okay, well, what's the weather going to be like? How am I going to factor that in? You get, I don't know if all of you watch the Weather Channel. I do, because I want to know if it's going to be cold or warm tomorrow. Okay, but there's these videos that show, hey, summer's going to be warm this year, and so what does that mean to me as a business? How do I factor that in? So with these embedded AI and machine learning applications, we can bring that information in and actually start to use the forecasting side of the world in a different way, in a modern way, in like almost like science fiction way, right? In that respect. But hey, they're providing us the technology to be able to do that. I talked about this in the beginning, the simpler interface. Okay, I mean, everybody likes what they, or should we say, holds onto that comfort blanket. Okay, but it has been redesigned, and then we've gone, as from that example, from pixelated screens all the way up to Fiori now. Okay, which is incredible. If any of you ever used it, it's available on ECC. Okay, the database, the Fiori, can be used in ECC. I don't know if that's a little known fact or not, but yeah, absolutely it can. Into the S4 world, okay, but yeah, imagine taking your iPad and just pushing buttons and getting, a transaction up that enables you to go to receipt, or that enables you to schedule your production lines. Okay, so they've gone a long way and in the journey of making life easy for us. Okay, and that's the whole thing behind the simple user interface premise. Okay, how much easier can we make it for people to use the system? All the work that's gone on in the background for that, yeah, people don't see or recognize or even acknowledge really. They just go, wow, look what I can do. Yeah, but it's there. That technology is incredible, and will be utilized. And in 5-10 years time, yeah, it'll be like when Excel first came out. Everyone thought a VLOOKUP was the best thing in the world. Now, people will just assume because of apps, because of the Fiori tiles, that's the way of the world. My children won't know any different. Okay, they're 6 and 4 years old. They won't know about the pixelated screens, but what their future holds in terms of interface, we don't know, right? But this is where we are at the moment, and this is what SAP are providing us. Business-wise, one of the big headaches around period ends and those kind of things. They've tried to address this. They've looked at how can they revolutionize the finance side of the world, and they've gone to what they're calling I can't remember actually. It's the Universal Journal. That's it. It's written right in front of me. Okay, enabling faster analytics to you as users to be able to get your month ends done or your weekends done or however you close, year ends, those kind of things, right? So they're enabling faster reconciliation. They're enabling real reporting in real time. Okay, but also again with that future vision ahead, it's like, okay, well then if I can do that, then what from a machine learning perspective can I incorporate to be able to help me do predictive accounting, do this kind of stuff? Again, Arthur C. Clarke always comes to mind with that quote: today's science fiction, tomorrow's future. But they're laying down that base for it. And let's not forget our friends in the plant maintenance world, right? Okay, I mean, again, how do I incorporate my machines into my ERP, into my S4, okay, to be able to get smarter at reacting, preventative maintenance, knowing that something's going to break down, integrating that with the production planning side of the world, scheduling those downtimes, using the integration that S4 provides. Immense. I mean, I talk about it a lot. I've never seen it. Okay, and I'm talking, mature businesses. 1 or 2 people have spoken about it, but this is now the ability to be real. Okay, but this is again a paradigm shift in terms of the way business users think. Right, we need to break down those silos. They're still there, metaphorically speaking, in the business world. But now that we've got something that integrates a lot easier, maybe will integrate a lot easier as well. Okay, so now this is another really interesting area that basically I find fascinating, which is effectively the way that they have completely and utterly reconstructed and streamlined the functionality. Okay, so we've still got our existing modules, right? But what they've done is, because the way that they've basically reconstructed things, we can't do things the way that we wanted to or have done in the past. So what SAP did was they, along with their value maps, which by the way have existed a while, but they're really coming into the fore now. Okay, they've replaced all of the modules with what are known as the S/4HANA Logistics Suite and lines of business. Now, the next 4 webinars, I've got my erstwhile colleagues Christy and Steve on the line with me today. There's 2 Seans who are missing, Sean squared. Okay, they can't make today, but ultimately over the next 4 webinars, which you saw at the very beginning, okay, these amazing people are going to dive deeper into those lines of business and show you some really cool differences from an ECC functionality, HANA S4 functionality perspective. Okay, but what I'm going to do is just quite literally go over them quickly in terms of what they are. Okay, so there's the 4 logistics lines of business. You've got your classic sourcing and procurement. Okay, but remember I was telling you about the the fact that we don't need IS solutions anymore, or that we are basically bringing back in, you know, those big things like PPDS and Ariba and Fieldglass. They're all back in there now. So what they've done is they've given it the umbrella of logistics lines of business. Okay, and this is the sourcing and procurement side of those. And Steve is going to dive deep into this to show us exactly what, you know, is there under the hood, so to speak. Right? Okay. From a manufacturing perspective, my colleague Sean Stokey is going to dive down deep, okay, and show you, you know, all those cool differences around capacity planning and scheduling and those kind of things to be able to really highlight the differences. But as you can see here, okay, they effectively have brought in, you know, PPDS and SAP MII, which you know, it's all in there now. Quality management, they're all together under one line of business. One that's particularly near and dear to Christie's heart, okay, is the new supply chain logistics line of business, okay. And it says here, perhaps the most inclusive of the four. Okay, solutions such as IBP, extended warehouse management, transportation management are now considered to be part of the logistics supply chain line of business. And I know that Christie's got a real treat for you coming up to be able to go and dive down into there and show you some of the great functionality that is now there versus, you know, what you get from an ECC perspective. And like I always say, not to forget last and least, you know, our friends from the plant maintenance side of the world. You know, being a plant manager, they you know, they're extremely integral to the supply chain, even though, you know, all those engineers think that they're not, but they are. Okay, but you've got enterprise asset management coming back in. You've got the EH and S, you know, all those health and safety managers out there, you know, all now bringing back into the asset management line of business, along with obviously, you know, the classics in terms of PM and those kind of things. So to me, it's very logical, the approach. You know, I've taken all those modules, I've got this completely rewritten, but I need to make it feel like, because that change, you know, from left to right is so big that, you know, we have to bridge that gap and truly, you know, nurture. And you know, we need to nurture businesses, right? We need to make it easier for them to be able to change. Yeah, whereas before it's been, you know, very drastic. You know, so hopefully it becomes a lot easier. And this is a lovely, interesting little survey that I found from the American SAP user group and from our colleagues over in Europe, the German-speaking SAP user group side of the world. You know, two of the biggest perceived benefits, right? You know, or you know, people that have never used but are interested in using it, they are really keen around the S/4HANA suite. They see a huge benefit from a business perspective. But obviously, it's the things like Fury that are exciting people, right? You can see there that, you know, a lot of people are interested in, can I get my hands on Fury? Well, you don't have to wait for S4, right? You know, it's available on your ECC side of the world as well. So I've used them. They are incredible. Yeah, they really do make a big difference. Okay, and here you can see, right? Okay, I've just talked about it, but here's, you know, what people are thinking. This is why, you know, they're thinking, hey, we're going to get improved performance. We're going to get better setup for faster innovation, right? You know, this big one that I've circled, the optimization of existing business processes. Okay, they perceive that as a benefit, but really and truthfully, the reason that I've highlighted it is because it will be a benefit. But if you can do that before you go to S/4HANA, then effectively that transition to HANA is going to be so much easier. Okay, because you don't have to wait. And, you know, I talk about bite-sized chunks and small steps and nurturing change. Okay, I mean, quite literally, if you're going to implement S/4HANA and then start thinking about changing your business processes at the same time, that's a big bite. Yeah, that's several bites there. So if you think about being able to start optimizing your business processes now, and then I've highlighted the one on the right hand side, start to look at things like your customizations and the removal of any unnecessary code and those kind of things, then the transition to HANA is going to be a lot easier, right? Because you're going to have your standard practices in place. You're not going to have to rewrite a load of stuff, right? Because if you, from a business perspective, have gone in and changed the way that you do things, you know, from, like I say, from a business perspective, using the flows that come with SAP in terms of a standard practice perspective, then that transition is going to be a lot easier, and those benefits will be realized. Okay, so I recognize that we're, you know, what, half an hour in now, so let's just do a quick wrap up, and then I'm going to throw the floor open up to questions for myself, Christy, and Steve. Okay, this is very straightforward as far as I'm concerned. Okay, SAP is blazing a trail into the digital future, right? It's heading to what it's calling the intelligent enterprise. It's helped us by not changing the front end too much, right? It's redesigned, and now it's got 4 logistics lines of business. Okay, but you now can see that they're not hugely drastic, but obviously the exciting stuff after this boring overview is going to come from you know, from the other 4 webinars in terms of getting really into the nitty-gritty. Okay, you know, from your, you know, businessman, IT costs are going to come down, but you're going to get faster processing capabilities. Yeah, okay. The simple data model enables, you know, things like month ends and inventory management counts to be done quicker. Okay, but really and truthfully, it's the new backbone for business operations to be able to use emerging technologies. The Internet of Things, I remember when that popped up, I was like, what is that? How am I going to use that? Artificial intelligence. Well, Arthur C. Clarke has been shouting on about artificial intelligence since about 1960. Okay, finally it's here. Yeah, robotic processes, you know, cloud integration, right? This is now enabled by S4 and the HANA database. Okay, so on that note, I am going to just quickly pass it over to Kelly, and she's going to remind us of this really cool supply chain bootcamp thing that Reveal are doing.
Thanks, David. That was some great information for myself and everybody on the line here. Before we jump into the questions that we have, I just wanted to throw this out to our audience that we are offering a masterclass SAP Supply Chain Bootcamp coming up in May. I've also put this URL into the chat for you as well, so you have a direct link. And if you go ahead and would like to sign up for this, we are offering a buy one, get one free. And you just use this code that I have listed here, which I've also put in the chat, which is webinar 50 off. So again, feel free to take that and sign up for our upcoming bootcamp. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and email us at the info@revealvalue.com. David, if you could throw up that next slide for me.
Certainly can.
And here is our information. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. And now I'm going to jump right into questions. So if anybody else has any questions, feel free to put those in the chat or the question section. And David, I'm going to start off with the first question that we have, which is, what are the advantages of an in-memory platform?
Oh my, that's great. So, I mean, speed. Okay, it's like, you know, I can have things instantly at my disposal to be able to, and I'll relate, you know, back to my old operational days where I used to have to wait, like, you know, what did we produce? How did we get, you know, what have we done? So, you know, with this ability to be able to get that information faster, you know, from a business perspective, you are enabled or enabling whoever is going to get that information to make quicker decisions.
Thanks, David. We do have a couple more questions here. The second one I have is, how do I optimize my data footprint for my SAP S/4HANA instance?
Ooh, that's a great question, that is. So obviously somebody is thinking, you know, ahead, which is awesome. talking about getting your data in order so that you can actually then migrate, or save some money from a greenfield perspective and migrate, to a brownfield, or but I mean, that's not easy to do. Okay, because basically what you need to be able to do is go into all of your data, all of your subsets, your production master data, your material master data, your planning master data, and you need to be able to cleanse it. You need to be able to say, okay, is it correct? One, okay, have I got it structurally correct? Can I just take it and port it over? Is it going to give us what we need? So we need to be then challenging our processes to be able to say, well, not only am I taking master data over, but I'm also going to be taking maybe some transactional data. A lot of orders and those kind of things still need to come in to the new system. Is that clean? How's my housekeeping? Is it all up to date? Because I do not want to import millions of bits of information that I don't really need to import. So it's an in-depth cleanse of your data at every level, at every module that that you need to embark on to make life easier when you do that transformation, that migration, or even implementation.
Thanks, David. And on that note, Sheila has a question. What is the difference between greenfield versus brownfield that you just mentioned?
Well, okay, the layman's term, because I am a layman, I'm not IT, is that greenfield means that I'm going to start from fresh. Okay, which means that I'm going to go and re-implement or implement if you've never implemented SAP before. Okay, whereas a brownfield will be exactly what I've just described, which is you go and you basically take all of your current information and you tidy it up and you make sure that it's relevant, and then you just basically port it over. Yeah, you're doing all the hard work here. Another thing from the brownfield perspective is obviously your business processes as well, not just your data. Okay, so getting ready for that is all about cleaning up your data, but also about reinventing yourself from a business process perspective. And in the survey slides that I showed you on the right hand side there, the last one about code, about removing code, it's easier to just port standard into the S4 world rather than have an army of people having to go in and do lots of unit testing and those kind of things to make sure that that code gets ported over properly, and the architecture can support it, and fundamentally greenfield is we start from fresh, brownfield is we take what we have, we tidy it up, and we move it over. Hope that's helped.
I think so. Thanks, David. And one last question that we have is, what are the biggest benefits as part of an S4 transformation?
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, you just seen 7 really big benefits. Okay. But I think I'm going to go back to the original benefit, which is from a business perspective. Okay. It is now that you have a platform, yeah, which would enable you to move into the future. I mean, I'm going to go back to an example of a company that we're doing some work with. They are literally, they have 20 different instances that they are trying to put together. Okay, there's different versions, this, that, and the other. Okay, so if they want to take those 20 businesses into the future, okay, because obviously, I mean, if you're doing a merger, then it's going to be some casualties along the way. The idea is that you have this platform to be able to then suddenly introduce those businesses a lot easier. So it's quicker for you to bring those onto one instance. Yeah. So it's a huge. I mean, it's just I could talk all day about benefits, really and truthfully, but that's just a good example of being able to say I've got this one platform and I can go out and acquire businesses and integrate them seamlessly with my current platform. That from a COO perspective, from a CEO perspective, from a CIO perspective, is huge. Yeah, and that is one of the big advantages of S4.
Thanks, David. I'm going to take one more question here, and I think you and Christy can actually both answer this one. And she wants to know, how does SAP IBP integrate into S4HANA, or is it a different module running on the HANA database?
I'm going to hand that one over to the expert then.
Good afternoon, everybody. IBP is its own solution that integrates with HANA and S4HANA or ECC. So it is a separate application entity altogether, but it interfaces very, very well with S4. And you'll see there's a similar framework for Fiori apps that supports IBP. And if you are an IBP customer today and you are only familiar with the Excel user interface and are not using the Fiori apps, stay tuned for the next presentation because we will walk you through that in the webinar and some of the benefits that are there. That's some of the hidden value that comes with IBP and the commonality that exists between the two platforms.
Great. Thank you so much, Christy, for that information. So speaking of our next webinar, we have our next one on June 15th. What is the difference in S4HANA versus the ECC across demand planning, supply planning, and MRP? So thank you everyone for joining us today. We very much appreciate it and look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Yes, thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, David.
Pleasure, Steve.